My name is Katie O'Leary. I'm a marketing communications manager, and I've been doing this for about 3.5 years. My mom is a software developer, senior software developer. She's worked at various tech companies throughout her career, Siemens. She was there for most of my childhood. And my dad is also a software developer, but for as long as I can remember, he has been a software architect, and that's currently what he does today. I didn't quite understand what my parents did growing up. Engineering was pretty complicated to a 10-year-old, right? But I did know that they worked really hard, and I did know that they loved their jobs and were happy what they were doing. So for me, I wanted to find something that I was excited about and that I worked hard in. I think my parents saw early on that I wouldn't be an engineer and saw that I had a little bit more of the creative side in me. Not that engineers aren't creative, but that I was more into English and that side of the brain. So they didn't really push me to do computer science, or they really just wanted my brother and I to do the best that we can, get the best grades that we could, and do something that we love and learn. When I was a junior in high school and we had a career fair coming up, and what we got to do was you got to spend a day in a certain career. And so that was the first time that my parents told me, I think you'd be really great at marketing. When I got to Harker and got through the first quarter, I got my GPA and got a 2.9 and was so beyond devastated because I had come from public school getting a 4.0 every single semester, and getting a 2.9 was just unheard of for me. And so for me, that was very eye-opening that I needed help and I needed to get it from my teachers. So spending a lot of time after school with them was just a necessity because a 2.9 to me was just unacceptable. I think the hard thing for me at Harker was that everyone is so extremely smart that even if you're a little bit above average, you feel kind of like the bottom of the barrel. So I worked hard and I made sure to get the best grades that I could, but it definitely was a struggle to always feel like you're a little bit behind the other students. But I was definitely not the kid that was taking AP everything and honors everything, and the regular classes at Harker were challenging for me, and I still worked hard and still tried hard, but definitely wasn't an AP honor student. With my job and with marketing communications is a lot of soft skills. It's a lot of things that are almost natural for me. And so that's just some things that other kids don't have. So even a kid with a 4.9 GPA, if they're not great at communicating with people and reaching out to others and are extremely organized, then this position wouldn't be great for them. For me, I participated a lot in extracurriculars. I was on the dance team. I did dance classes outside of school. I was in a dance certificate program in high school. I also did leadership, which is basically all the school events, helped with that, and then also did yearbook. So all of the social things that you could do, I did at school. I think a trait that most business people have is you want to be a leader. So for me, in all of the dance programs that I've done in high school and in college, I've always strove to be the leader, to be the captain. And so for both of the teams, I was. So when I was a junior in high school, we had a career day where Harker gave us the opportunity to choose, I think, from 20 different careers on what we wanted to trial for a day. And what we got to do was you got to visit a couple different companies to get to see what they do every day and what their businesses are about. So my parents told me that they thought I would be perfect marketing advertising professional. And at the time I had no idea what I was going to do. So I said, why not? And we got to visit an ad agency and a marketing agency, and I knew right away that's what I wanted to do. Everything that they were doing was exciting. The people seemed happy. They were doing really amazing, cool things, and it was just a place that I wanted to be. And so at that point, I knew I wanted to go to business school, and I knew I wanted to do marketing. Education is one of the most important things in my family, and it's the most important thing to my parents. They do not have fancy cars, we do not live in a fancy house, but they spend money on our education. And so for me, going to college was not an option. It was something that my brother and I just were going to do. I basically picked my major from influence from my parents, just thinking that I would be good at marketing, and also just from experiences that I had in high school with people that I met. So I knew I wanted to do business, and from taking that, I looked at business schools in California, and then also I had a feeling that I would love Boston just because it's a college town. Seemed very similar to the Bay Area to me, and so the other half of the colleges that I applied to were in the Boston area. So I decided to go with a university called Bentley. It's right outside Boston, and I chose this school because when I was a junior, my mom and I and a couple others went to go visit a ton of schools in the Boston area, and when we went to Bentley, I just had an amazing feeling about the school. It just felt like a perfect fit. I loved the campus. I loved the people that we met. It just felt right. And so from being great on paper and then being great in person, I just knew Bentley was the right school for me. I think internships are extremely important, especially at the end of your college career, just because it allows you to add real work experience onto your resume, where if you don't do that, all you have is the clubs that you were in and the positions that you held within those clubs, where it's good to have that because it shows that you're a leader and that you work hard and you're dedicated, but to be able to associate yourself with a company holds a little bit more weight. I strongly believe that if you're going to participate in an extracurricular activity, that you should try to become the leader and to get to dictate what the vision and the strategy of the group is going to be, whether it's sports or academic teams. The skills that I picked up with being the captain of the dance team was leadership, confidence, dedication, and hard work. You need to be very scrappy to be the captain of the dance team because you need to figure out how to get money for your team so that you can go to your competitions, so that you can have uniforms. You need to be able to make sure that your team is motivated and excited and joins all the practices and is there on time and is working hard. And so it's definitely something that I still carry with my career day to day. I don't think there are any specific certifications or degrees that you have to have in order to be in marketing communications, but in my experience, I have a marketing degree and a media degree, and then also the people that I work with, most of them have communications degrees. So it does help you understand a little bit more about the career path that you potentially want to take if you do have that degree, although it's not a necessity. I graduated with a degree in marketing and media and with a couple internships under my belt. But because I graduated also in the height of the recession, it was a little difficult to get my career started right away. So because I can't sit still, I took on a couple odd jobs and took on some internships, and about a year and a half later, I landed my full-time job. I think the most unconventional part of my path was the fact that I was 16 and I knew that I wanted to be in marketing. I was determined to be in marketing. So from that day until now, everything that I've done and worked towards has been to make sure that I work in marketing. Doing the right thing meant going to business school, getting a marketing degree, taking marketing classes, taking all sorts of business classes to make sure that I really did like marketing, and then also having different marketing internships. So I was on a partner marketing team, and I was also on a web marketing team. I think for younger generations, if you don't have a business degree or you don't have a marketing degree, you can always get in through social media. Because you were raised on social media and it's a part of your life, and that's not something that is a part that I grew up on or that older generations grew up on. It's something that you can help with and give advice on, and it's something that companies still need help with, and that's the in. So I landed my internship that eventually turned into my full-time job because of this woman that I babysat for. She worked at a company in finance, and she started introducing me to a lot of the marketing team, and eventually they found a position for me and invited me to come in to interview. And I think because I had already a social media internship underneath my belt, it was an easy fit for them, and that started my career. For me, I wasn't really into social media. I didn't blog. It was really something that I was just eager to get into business, and because I was so eager, I taught myself once I started at this company. I taught myself how to use WordPress and taught myself what were the top 50 blogs that I should be reading and publications I should be looking for to gain knowledge about the market. So it really is something that you can learn. You don't need to, I don't think you need to be an avid blogger or an avid social media user to, be good at it as a job. As a marketing communications manager, I'm responsible for communications, PR, and social media. Basically, what I do is help with our public awareness. So whether it's through reporters, through analysts, through social media, through the executives themselves, we're making sure that the same message and the right branding is consistent everywhere. The way that I would explain what I do to my 82-year-old great aunt would be that I am just making sure that whatever we want to say as a company is out there in the public. So if she was reading a newspaper or if she was reading an article online, in some shape or form, I was involved in that. PR is basically trying to get your company's message, your story out to the public. So making sure that you constantly talk to reporters and analysts to make sure that they're informed about what your company is doing. Social media is something that I've been doing since I started at my current job, and basically it's what you do on PR, what you do with PR, but you're doing it on Facebook and Twitter and in the blog, and you're making sure that everything that you're doing, such product launches and promotions and just cool things that you're doing at your company, you want to make sure that everyone is aware. A lot of companies use social media very differently. At the company that I'm at currently, we use it mostly for awareness. So we use it to amplify current marketing messages or PR messages, and just using Facebook and Twitter and our blog. The interesting thing with social media is that customers want to interact with the company as a person to person. They don't want you to just be this weird, ominous company where they don't know who's behind the screen. They want to know who you are. So we've been making a big effort to do employee blogs and a lot of culture videos and posts so that people really know who are the people behind, my company. Something that's pretty new to my career is executive communications, which basically is helping the executives in your company with speeches when they talk to reporters, making sure that they have the right messaging. You can help the executives with any communication needs that they have, such as writing internal emails or an external email to partners, customers, shareholders, helping them with talking points if they're on a panel or they're doing a keynote or they're talking to a reporter or to an analyst. So just making sure that the executives are as prepared as possible. The amazing thing about my role is that I get to interact with practically everyone in the company. So I interact with our PR agency, so a lot of external vendors, customers, partners, but I also get to interact with executives and teams throughout the whole company. Everyone needs help with communications, I think, where maybe they're really amazing engineer, but if they're going to be talking on a panel, that might not be necessarily their comfort zone. Or you want to make sure that everyone in your company is represented on your blog, but they might not necessarily be the best writers. So your skills are unique and helpful to everyone in the company. Throughout my short career, I have worked in lots of different spaces. I've worked in cubicles, I've worked in open environments where it's really just a table and a lot of computer screens. I personally like the open concept. I think it's the nature of my job where you're talking to people all day and needing to meet with people all day, so it's just easier than being walled into a cube. Typically, if I'm not traveling for work, you'll have our there's tons of weekly different meetings that you'll have to be a part of, whether it's larger groups, like for me, I have to be a part of a large partner meeting where we go over everything that we're doing with all of our partners so that everyone's in sync, or it's smaller groups where you're going through very specific projects. And a lot of the times it's just making sure that everyone's in line, which is most of your meetings are just making sure everyone is aware of what's going on in the other teams, so everyone's doing the right thing. So the cool thing about my company is that no one has their own office, so all of the conference rooms are open to everyone. So if you do have a meeting, you'll go in a conference room so you're not bothering others, but it's not, anyone's specific room, which is kind of nice. I think being in communications is a good fit for me because I can be analytical and I get to interact with lots of different kinds of people. Being in business is hard and the markets fluctuate a lot. So one day your company will be doing great and everyone will be happy, and the next day you'll have a gigantic layoff. And so just being flexible and knowing that that's the nature of business, I think will be helpful. The tech industry is very volatile, and right now it's really exciting because there's a lot of interesting things going on in a lot of different tech industries. So I think as a person working in the tech industry, you have a lot of different opportunities at a lot of different companies, where at times it's the other way around. There isn't a lot of options and there's a lot of great people. So it just depends, on the timing and on the market. I think for me, when I first got into social media, I realized that a lot of it wasn't defined. So I got to define a lot of the strategy and the analytics myself, which was very exciting. But for something like PR that is very established, it was a little difficult for me to just figure out how it works and what are the right ways to just launch a product. When's the right timing and who are the right reporters to reach out to, and that's something that I'm still learning. But that definitely was a little bit harder for me because it was such an established, role. I think with PR there is a formula where you have a product launch, you create a press release, you reach out to the appropriate reporters. That formula is very established. I think the difficult thing and the exciting thing is how do we make it bigger than it is? How do we get more buzz around it? What are the cool and new and different things that we can do that is beyond the traditional, that is beyond I'll tweet it, I'll put a Facebook post out, I'll write a blog, I'll do a press release. Like, what is the beyond that? And that's kind of the exciting part and what we're, figuring out. The hard thing with working with executives is that they're people and everyone has different personalities. So you need to figure out and adjust your strategy and your plan of action depending on the executive. Day to day, my challenges are just making sure that things don't get delayed and they're moving along. So it's a lot of reaching out and contacting and meeting with people to make sure that what they're said that they're going to do, they are on track to do. I think the success is measured based more on the consistency of coverage. So you want to make sure that your company is always in the news, whether it's because of launches or announcements or just because of bylines that you push out, which basically are you have an executive write an article and you pitch it out to different publications. We always want to make sure that we have couple announcements a quarter. We want to make sure that we have a couple bylines a quarter. We want to make sure that we hit certain social media benchmarks where we have certain amount of engagement. With a lot of our announcements have been very successful. We have a really great team here at the company that I work for. It's just making sure that you're going out to not only the tech publications, but you're going out to all the business publications so that as an employee, you see your company's name in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and that makes people very excited and proud to be at this company where they get mentioned in these great publications. But then also it's kind of a volumes game too. You want, for certain announcements and for certain launches, you want to be everywhere. So you want to get thousands and thousands of Twitter mentions and Facebook posts and views on your blog and things like that. Because you work with so many different groups within the company, there's a lot of asks of you, and being open and helpful and getting things done quickly, people appreciate it. Another part of my job is internal communications. And a couple times a year we do all hands. And so my team is responsible for putting together the whole presentation, the flow, any videos or anything else that we want to create for these all hands together. And so last year we changed the brand of my company and put together a really fun event for all of the employees to celebrate all their hard work. And I think doing things like that too also, make yourself more prominent within the company, but then, makes the employees happy because it shows that the company appreciates them. The skills that would be required for my position: you need to be analytical, you need to be a strong communicator, you need to be creative. In reference to communication, you need to be a strong writer, and you need to be able to work well with others and with lots of different personalities and different teams. Analytics are extremely important because PR and social specifically are seen as things that don't get immediate ROI. So you need to be able to prove to the rest of the company, to the executives, to the board, that what you're doing is worth your time and worth their money. And you need to make sure that you can show how many clicks or how many impressions or how many people retweeted it. Did it cause people to go to your website? Any analytics that you could put around things that you're doing is helpful. The habits that you need to have in this role: You need to not be afraid to reach out to people over and over again and follow up again. You also need to be extremely patient, and you need to be very organized because there's a lot of different things going on. You're helping a lot of different departments in the company, so you need to make sure that you don't miss one thing over the other. I think to be a good communications professional, you need to be analytical, you need to be good with people, but you also need to be creative and be able to come up with different and unique ways to get the word out there. So my advice for someone that wants to get into communications or into PR is to do internships. You can really have any degree. I think it's nice to have a business degree or a marketing degree just because you understand more what's going on in the business as a whole, but I don't think it's a necessity, but it is a necessity to have internships because companies are looking for a little bit of experience. So the fact that you would be able to go in and say, I've done an internship and tried social media and did that for a semester, and I worked with a marketing team and tried that for a semester, or I worked with a PR agency and tried that, is powerful and will get you, at least an interview. I'm motivated when I help people and I make their day or hour or life a little bit easier. I'm motivated by hitting goals, big or small, with a team. I'm very goal-oriented. I do like to make lots of to-do lists and lots of little goals, and I always have a very large goal at the end. So yes, I'm very goal-oriented. Since I'm very early in my career, I don't really know what I'll be doing in 5 to 10 years. The way that social media and PR has evolved even over the last couple years that I've been working in it, it's going to be completely, totally different. I mean, when I first started in social media, it was this weird, siloed thing that I did by myself. And now it is such an integrated aspect of our company. I mean, we have one person that is full-time dedicated to social media, but it's really the product teams are thinking about social media and the design teams are thinking about social media and the engineers. I mean, it's all over the company now. It's not just one person shouting in the corner. I think any tech job is paid pretty well. So for that aspect, you don't need to really worry about it. If you're going to work in tech, you'll get paid well. I think the nice thing with marketing communications is that you feel a lot of self-worth because you are involved in a lot of what's going on in the company, and you do have an integral role within the go-to-market process, where if you didn't have PR and communications, everyone would put all this hard work into doing all these amazing things, and then no one would know about it. So the amazing thing is that you get to make everyone aware. You get to put it out there. To me, the most interesting part of my job is when I get to do things externally. So even in the very beginning of my career, I got the opportunity to participate in events and got to be a part of the booth. And it's very eye-opening to talk to someone that doesn't know anything about your industry, anything about your company, and for you having to explain it to them is extremely helpful for a communications role, because you get stuck in this little, for me, Silicon Valley bubble with a lot of these buzzwords, where when you get outside of that, being able to speak in normal terms, I think it's extremely helpful for my job. One of the fun things about my job is we have a very open culture, and so I'll usually try to at least take a half hour every day and go get lunch with one of my coworkers or a couple coworkers, or we'll go get coffee. And so it's just nice to connect with the other employees and just get to talk a little bit about what they're working on, what I'm working on outside of the office, get some vitamin D.